All right, we're starting our last unit today. So it is data and statistics. So make sure you have your notes and a pencil, and let's get started. The first thing we need to know is samples. So a sample is a subset of an entire group. That just means like you have all the 7th grade, a subset of that, or a sample of that would be all the kids who have Miss Washington as their math teacher. So it refers to a portion of a group with specific characteristics. Data collected from the sample is called a sample statistic. Now, populations is when collecting the data, the population references the entire group. So the entire 7th grade would be the population. And data collected from the entire population is called a population statistic. So we are given a couple populations and we're going to write the samples. So like people living in a specific neighborhood is the population. The sample or a subset in there could be the elderly that live in that neighborhood. It could be all the children that live in that neighborhood, as long as it's still about that neighborhood, but it's a specific group, okay? Families with children is the population. Samples can be a family or the families with one kid or child. It could be families with 5 kids, families with 2 kids, families with daughters. Anything as long as it's still families with children. The next one is seniors at East High School. That is our population. So to be more specific, to give us our sample, it can be seniors who drive their cars to East High School. So notice it's still talking about that same group, it's just making it smaller. The only people that can be in our sample are people that are also in that population. It can't be anyone else. The next thing that you need to know is random samples. So with random samples, everyone in the population must have an equal chance of being selected in order for a sample to be random. So here's an example. A survey is taken of favorite sports in 7th grade, but only the girls are surveyed. So this is not a random sample, because in that whole population of 7th grade, if you just survey the girls, the boys did not have an equal chance of being in that random sample. So it is not a random sample. Okay, so using all that information, we get to our population inferences. So once a sample has been collected from a population, an inference about the entire population can be made by setting up a proportion. Remember, proportions is like ratio equal to a ratio. Most of the time, this is going to be like our sample, and then this will be for the total population. So these inferences can also be used to compare different populations and make predictions. Okay, so let's do an example together. So Eastside Middle School conducted a survey of randomly selected 6th graders to determine which elective they were most likely to participate in. The results are shown in the table. So they have Spanish, theater, and arts. How many students were surveyed? All we have to do there is just add 14 plus 20 plus 6. 14 plus 6 is 20, plus another 20 is 40. So there were 40 students surveyed. That is the first piece of information we need to know, how many were surveyed. All right. B, what percentage of students surveyed selected Spanish as their elective? So we're just talking about students surveyed right now. So remember we said there are 40 students surveyed, 14 chose Spanish. So now we need to find the percentage. Remember that is shown as x over 100 So let's do that math. We can simplify 14 over 40 because I see they're both even numbers, so I'm going to divide them both by 2. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. 40 divided by 2 is 20. Then you can cross multiply or scale factor. I know 20 times 5 is 100. So 7 times 5 is 35. So that means 35% of the students surveyed selected Spanish. Part C, there are 350 students in the 6th grade at East Middle School, or East Side Middle School. So this is our big total, not our sample total. This is our whole population. Using the sample about how many students can be expected to sign up for art. So we're going to use our sample first. So the amount of kids that chose art is 6 out of the 40. And we want to know in the whole population how many will choose art. Okay, so same thing. We can simplify this. So both even can divide by 2. So it'd be 3 over 20. I don't know off the top of my head a scale factor, so I'm going to cross multiply here instead. So I'm going to switch to a different color. So we're going to cross multiply. So I need to do 30 or 350 times 3. So you get 1050. So it is 1050 is equal to 20x. So that had to divide by 20. So I'm going to come down here and do that math real quick. Add a decimal, bring down a 0, go in there 5. So x is technically 52.5, but it said about how many students, and we can't have half of a student. So we're going to say about 53 students would choose art. We're going to round up. All right, so D, of the 350 students in 6th grade, how many can be expected to sign up for theater? So same thing, we're going to set up our sample first. So in our sample, 20 out of the 40 chose theater. So for our population, we want to know how many out of 350. So I'm going to simplify this. I know 20 is half of 40, so I know this is 1/2. Or you could just break it down and go, oh, half of that is 10 over 20, and then 5 over 10, and then 1 over half. However you want to do it, I just could tell it was 1/2 off the bat. So then we had to figure out what x is. So you probably might be able to figure out your scale factor or cross multiply, but when we cross multiply, it's just going to end up being 350 is equal to 2x, so we're just going to divide by 2. Either way you do it. So 350 divided by 2, bring down my 5, bring down my 0, and that's exactly 10. So 175 students can be expected to sign up for theater in the whole entire 6th grade. All right, E, the school decides to drop any elective that has less than 10% of the students' interest. Miguel says that since only 6 students would sign up for art, it should be dropped. Explain why this is or is not correct. So if 6 out of 40, I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. That'd be 3 over 20. So we need to figure out what percent that would be. So we're going to make it equal to x over 100. Remember, 20 times 5 is 100. So 3 times 5 is 15. So this will be 15%. 15% is not less than 10%. So Miguel is incorrect. So then we're just going to write why he's incorrect. All right, so now we need to use this information and mark if these are true or false. So first one says over half of the students at East Side Middle School will select theater for their elective. Well, we know there are 20 out of 40. That's exactly one half, so this is false. Next one, combined Spanish and art classes account for 50% of the electives. Well, Spanish is 14, plus art is 6. That's 20. 20 out of 40 is one half, or 50%. So that is true. And the last one, out of the 350 students at Eastside Middle School, at least 120 will sign up for Spanish. So we got to figure out what percentage Spanish is. Okay, so we need to figure out what percentage Spanish is. So if it's 14 out of 40, remember that simplifies to 7 over 20. So out of 100, that's when we do the times 5. So it's 35%, so we have to figure out of 350 what that is. So you can do 350 times 0.35, 0, 5, 2, 15, 17, 0, 0, 15, 9, 10, add 0, 5, 12, 2, 1. And then you have two decimals. So this is like 122, 123 students, which is at least 120. So this is true. All right, take this into your journal and move on.